Larry Householder to face the sentencing judge. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. In a week, former House Speaker Larry Householder will learn how long he could spend in federal prison. Federal Judge Timothy Black will hand down his sentences for Householder and lobbyist Matt Borges for their convictions on bribery and racketeering. The federal government recommends 16 to 20 years for Householder as the penalty for masterminding the nuclear bailout scheme. Prosecutors say Householder acted as the, quote, quintessential mob boss, directing the criminal enterprise from the shadows. Mike Miller, you have been in federal court, represented defendants. 16 to 20 years, does that seem, it's the maximum, I guess, does that seem like a reasonable sentence?
Well, his attorneys came out and wanted 18 months or a year or something, and everybody does that. They hope for something close to that, and the prosecutors hope for something else. And I have heard, I inquired about Judge Black, who I do not know, and what his reputation is, and apparently he is noted to be a very liberal sentencer. But I don't see that in this case. I doubt if they'll get a maximum of 20, and I would be a bit surprised if it was 18 or 17. But I think will get double-digit years. So somewhere between 10 and 16 years would be my guess.
That's what most people have been saying, right, Julie? Certainly double-digit years, more than 10.
Right, and I mean, some of this is just the extent of this. The largest bribery case we've seen in this state, the number of entities, a Fortune 500 energy company, multiple text messages and CEOs falling right and left. So I just think that it was pretty compelling in the courtroom.
Defense attorneys, in asking for that 18-month sentence, said that Householder's been disgraced and humiliated by this experience. Has Householder expressed any humility or any remorse, Anna Staver?
Actually, not as yet. When when reporters got to him after the sentence came down, he said he intended to appeal. That's obviously something he's going to do. He still maintains that House Bill 6, that energy policy, was good public policy, and he still maintains his innocence. So that could be potentially, that's one of those challenges when people who claim their innocence are being sentenced. It's hard to act contrite when you don't believe you did something wrong.
How does that work? If you show remorse, might the judge go easier on you? But if you're going to appeal, he won't?
Well, I don't think the appeal will have any effect. I don't think a judge is going to penalize someone who takes their constitutional right to appeal. Remorse certainly helps, but I just don't see that at all in anything Householder has done. There's actually a section, when you plead guilty, they take the guidelines. The federal court has guidelines for all this stuff. It's not mandatory, but the judges stay within them. And if you enter a plea of guilty, you get lowered from whatever your points. If you got a 20-point level, which means X years, plead guilty drops it like to 17. And they call that acceptance of responsibility. It's just a bonus for entering your plea, and they drop it. He's not going to have that here. Now, you can remorse and say the right things as you would try and do it in front of any judge or anyone who makes a decision. It would help, but to me, it's just so wild, as Julie said. I can't imagine he's going to get a light sentence.
Deterrence is a factor in this, Sam Gresham. Would a 20-year prison sentence deter others from doing this down the road, do you think?
I think so, but I'd start at the low level. Those people would be most afraid. As you get a little higher on the totem pole, those people are willing to take the chance to make the big buck. The risk is in proportion to the reward. Also in politics, there's a game. If you don't ask for anything, you're a punk. So people ask for things to see it like that. I think the problem is the Democrats are not going to take advantage of this to the extent that they should. They're not good at having a good crisis of scandal and milking it for all they could. There's nothing been said. I haven't seen anything. Nobody's called a press conference and say, there, or anything like that.
Well, Democrats were involved in the bailout, and that's perhaps one of the reasons. Plus, this has taken 3 years.
Right. I mean, I don't think that's the reason necessarily, but it is true that they helped elect a Householder Speaker. There were Democrats who voted for House Bill 6, again, as Anna says, on the grounds that it was good policy. And it was a sweeping bill that had many elements to it.
As of Friday afternoon when we record this, Anna, we do not know what the recommendation is from Matt Borges, who was convicted of bribing a campaign operative from the other side for secret information. We would expect, since he wasn't the leader of this, he would get less than the maximum, even though they were both convicted of the same thing.
Yeah, that's my expectation. The word is that he was offered about 6 months or under a year in jail if he cooperated. He chose not to. It appears he may have gambled in error. It's hard to say. You know, I could see something maybe in the 4 to 8 year range, but I don't really know exactly what they're thinking in terms of his guilt.
Are other people who have not been charged in this, there are several folks who have been floating out there, were they watching to see what kind of sentence Larry Householder gets to decide whether or not they will cooperate or maybe try to cut a last-minute plea deal, Mike? Is it too late for that now?
No, I don't think it's too late because people have not been charged, and certainly they'd be looking at that. Just, what am I up against? As she says, you gamble or you don't gamble, and so I think that is something that anybody who's on the periphery of this, who may be charged and so forth, is clearly going to look at this sentence. And frankly, say if it were me, and a householder got 1 year, as Sam says, despite the seriousness and the money and all that, then I'm thinking, well, heck, I got to cooperate. I'm going to get less than that if I'm convicted.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Borges did have a lesser role in this particular scandal, but he also has a previous scandal under his belt involving the then state treasurer, Joe Dieters, who sits on our state Supreme Court now. And, he played a role in that. He pled to a misdemeanor charge way back then when he was in his 30s, and that may play into it as well.
All right, let's get to our next topic. It has been 1 year since the Supreme Court struck down Roe versus Wade. In those 12 months, Ohio imposed its 6-week abortion ban, but a judge ruled it violated the state constitution and put it on hold, where it remains. This summer and fall could decide the permanent fate of abortion rights in Ohio. In August, voters will decide whether to make it harder to change the Constitution. Future amendments would require a 60% majority. That would make it more difficult for abortion rights supporters to pass their planned November amendment to guarantee abortion rights in the Constitution. So, Julie Carr-Smythe, it has been a year, and really the fight is just beginning here in Ohio.
Absolutely. So if voters were to raise the threshold for a constitutional amendment to 60%, it would change the game for our one and only ballot issue in the nation this year. I don't think there is any other big one. Yeah. This is an off-election year. And so everybody around the nation, every group with interest in citizen-led initiatives, in direct democracy, in abortion rights, in all the other things that could be impacted by this, including gun rights and minimum wage, everybody's descending on Ohio with an interest.
When does the campaign begin in earnest, Anna? When do we start seeing ads, mailers? We're seeing press releases bounce back and forth, interviews, but nothing really organized publicly yet.
Actually, I think we'll see more of a door-to-door, a retail politics campaign. Not that obviously people are watching this show, but viewership goes down in the summer, and there is a real concern that you may be missing folks, especially since there's no large sporting events going on in the evenings. So we're already seeing lots of door-to-door campaigns. I was actually with Minority Leader Allison Russo earlier today, and she was at a senior center registering voters and getting them to request their absentee ballots.
For the August election.
Yeah.
Sam, Common Cause is involved in this, voter rights groups and voter education. How involved will Common Cause be in this? Will you be organizing folks?
Yes, we are. We're in the stages of doing that now. What we're doing now is on a lot of online stuff. We're bombarding people all over the state and targeting specific people. We're also out recruiting people to get them to participate. What you're talking about is a knock and talk campaign, which is to educate too and register. because the issue that we are bringing up, the 60% plurality, needs an explanation, because people don't understand that. And we need to turn out at an off-year election too. So we're working hard, and we think we'll make it. On the other side, they are really got their guns out, and they're doing everything they possibly can to get their voters out.
How do you see this playing out, Mike? Will Republicans, conservatives regret going for this 60%, or is it worth the gamble on their part?
Well, I'm no expert, but I think that this basically is done for one reason, and that's the abortion vote, plain and simple.
Yeah.
And I don't know the Republicans are going to regret it. I don't think it'll pass, as I've said before. I think it'll lose, and I think somewhat handily. But interesting enough, when reading this, they said this is a change for a law that we've had since 1912.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, well, what did we have before then? We certainly had a constitution for 100 years. So I guess this is not unprecedented getting into something like this, but I just feel that it's not going to pass, and I don't think it'll be particularly close. But
Looking at the turnout figures, the projections are all over the map. But I looked at the 2009 August election in the city of Columbus to raise the income tax. It raised the income tax 25%, only like half a percentage point, but it was 25% increase in the tax. That turnout was 18%. That had a lot of press. The unions were all out pushing it. Mayor Coleman, at the time, won a tax increase in the middle of a recession because he ran the election in August. And 18%, is that a figure, 18%? Would that be?
But it didn't have row your boat.
But this was a pocketbook issue, which brings people out a lot. Of course, if the residents don't always pay the income tax, so they work in a different city.
I wonder, I would be surprised if we saw 20% turnout, I think. I think it's going to be very low. And that is based on just a very anecdotal, like my neighbors who I've seen at some barbecues and some parties and stuff over the summer, most of them have no idea we're having an election. Like,
that's true.
I would think that is the first hurdle, is like people don't even know they're supposed to be voting.
But when I see my Republican friends, I say, remember Kansas, remember Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right.
You want to go any further? Row your boat.
Get people out, yeah. But we have to remember, we have this new voting law in place as well, which we're still educating, because the first election was this previous spring under those rules. And then you add, I've been doing some reporting around polling locations in the summer. You know, all of a sudden it wasn't on their calendar. Now there's summer weddings, and there's maintenance at school buildings, and there's fairgrounds are used up, and so there's going to be confusion all over the place.
Early voting will be the big push on both sides to get folks to either mail in their ballots or go to the early voting centers. Some Republican lawmakers want to make it harder to vote in primary elections. Under current law, any registered voter can vote in either party's primary. The voter just has to ask for that party's ballot and declare their membership right at the polls. Two bills at the State House would eliminate that practice. They would make voters declare their party affiliation before Election Day. One bill would require a declaration a month before, the other several months before. Supporters say it will prevent partisans from causing mischief at the opposing party's primary. Sam Gresham, you've been known to cause mischief. You're an independent but tend to side with Democrats. Have you ever voted in a Republican primary?
Not in my life. I've never voted in a Democratic primary because
So
I'm not
out of them. Yeah.
I'm not a Democrat. But I think I kept asking myself, and I was at some people's house and drinking wine and talking. We couldn't figure out, why would you want to do that? There may be an occasion where a non-registered person wants to flip. Now you put all these hurdles in their place in order for them to be able to do that. And I think people are going to walk around like, why did they do this? And we know what the answer is to reduce the number of people who vote.
Mike, you're a lifelong Republican. Should the primaries be limited to the folks who are really partisan and members of the Republican Party or Democratic Party?
you could make that argument, but I think this is really much to do about nothing. I mean, are there people, Democrats, who go in and vote for a Republican because they think that person is easier to beat? And are there Republicans who do the same thing to Democrats? Sure. But how many of them are there? Right. I doubt if there's 100 of people that do that in the entire county. It just seems to me they got better things to do than this.
And have the supporters of this presented any data on these mischievous voters?
No, not as yet, but they're still like working through the legislation. And this is how other states do it, though. Like every state does this a little bit different. There are lots of states that require party registration, that do closed primaries. So I think it's not unprecedented in the sense that like we do see this in other states.
But most of those are on the East Coast, where it's really hardball all up and down that East Coast, and they play the game that way. But Mike, you made a good point, and the point is, do we have a problem searching for a cause? And the Republicans are doing so many negative things. This is added to the menu. We got abortion, we got gay people. Now we're going to reduce your vote. You got 60% plurality. Do I need to go any further?
I guess I push back a little bit because I think it's possible we saw some of this in Marcy Kaptur's district last year. Marcy Kaptur's long time, the longest serving, I think, woman in Congress. She was safe as anybody could be in her primary last year, and the Republican primary split three ways, kicked out a couple really viable opponents to her who were state lawmakers and brought in kind of an extremist. And I think that we saw that in some other districts, niche districts around the state where there was some theory that Democrats were trying to boost extremists knowing they might lose in the fall.
He also burned Donald Trump's name in his lawn, right?
But I'm curious at what you're all saying because this state is a third independent.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
I don't know what that does to.
Yeah. All right. The Ohio House this week passed two bills limiting transgender rights. One would prevent transgender athletes from participating in high school or college women's sports. The other would ban gender-affirming care for people under the age of 18 and would require school officials notify parents if their child identifies as transgender or non-binary. It would also require schools to notify parents if they are going to teach about gender ideology and other sexual concepts. Anna Staver, this is a debate that is happening in many states. It's here now, and now it's actually approved legislation.
Yeah, it still has to clear the Senate, but it has gotten through the Ohio House. It's a little confusing because they were three separate pieces of legislation. Now we have two pieces of legislation. Maybe we'll get one over in the Senate. It's hard to say. But this is like a really interesting conversation about parental rights because you're dealing with parents' rights in two very different arenas. On the one hand, it's like, what do parents have the right to know about their child's education, about what they may be confiding in teachers? And supporters of that say, I have the right to know what my child is saying to their teachers. And on the other side, you have the parents of transgender children saying, I should have the right to make the medical decisions for my child. I want that parental freedom. And so it's interesting to me to sort of conceive of this as like two sides of the parental freedom coin.
So how do they justify the dichotomy there, the lawmakers, the parental rights versus, in this case, versus parental rights in another case?
They don't really. I mean, they aren't really addressing it when we bring this to them, that there's sort of a difference here. I mean, I think one is the idea that it's about some guidance of your child through the school system versus a sort of life-altering medical procedure. Though we have to say, fact check, that, it's not, I mean, gender surgeries are not happening under 18 in this state anyway.
Mike, the idea these people don't understand schools. If something goes wrong in a school and there's a rumor, parents will know. Don't kill yourself. I'm a parent. My kids will tell me what's going on in the schools and the issues. The other thing is, there is a cost being paid here. My kids are telling me now, they didn't even know what this thing LQIT plus all that. And what's happening is these kids are going around beating up kids who they think fit this category.
Let's look at the politics of this. A new poll indicates where Americans are on this issue, and it's not that clear cut. It's not just Republicans who have questions. The NPR PBS Marist poll indicates overall 61% of Americans believe gender identity is determined at birth. 88 Republicans feel that way, which is not that surprising. 62% of independents believe gender identity is determined at birth, And 37% of Democrats believe that way. So there are still a lot of questions out there, Mike, and it's not just Republicans pandering to their base here when you see 62% of independents are not sure on this issue.
Well, it's probably something like the death sentence. If we live another 100 years, we're still going to be arguing this. I mean, it's almost a Rubik's Cube. It's unsolvable. I mean, I see both sides to it, but like Julie said, these are life-changing matters. And to me, the line is different in that is, can you leave that to a parent of a 10-year-old child who may believe this, and is not at all, and would not be that way if you let her live to be 21 years old and change. I just think that it's a huge gamble to take.
Mike, this thing's been existing for a long time.
Of course it has.
And parents have been dealing with it. What always amazes me, it's like 0.006 of the population. And boys who want to be girls don't participate in athletic things.
It's like half a dozen people. Yeah.
Right.
In the state of Ohio, anyway. Yeah,
I mean, it's not a serious issue here.
Okay.
So I know it's a way of judging.
Yeah. All right, let's get to our last topic. The work from home culture continues to evolve. Some private companies embrace the pandemic-initiated practice. They've abandoned office space and recruit remote employees who live all across the country. Others have required workers to return to the office. The Ohio Senate, in its budget, wants to require state employees work at least 32 hours or 4 days in the office. Senate President Matt Huffman says state workers perform better when they're in the office. Others say remote work saves the state money and enhances recruiting. And Staver, do we know how many state workers are working from home, or is it vary by department?
We do not, actually. So this was a question that my colleague asked DAS, which is the Department of Administrative Services, and they don't have a specific count. Now, they said, obviously, the prison system, very in-person work. IT, probably much more remote. So it does vary by department, but there are some agencies that DAS noted that have cut their office space. They have, it's a couple $1 million in savings to the state because they sort of recognize they no longer need that much.
So they could be home permanently.
Yeah.
No place to go back to work, Julie.
Right. And I think those who are pushing it have said that this is, you're going to be more productive if you're in the office together. I know my own workplace, we all try to be in the office together 2 days a week, but I think that the era of full-time workplace at the office is over. And I think that the governor has made a point of saying that, it can become difficult to recruit good people if you don't give them some flexibility these days.
Mike, these are public employees funded in part or all by taxpayer dollars. Does that make a difference?
I don't think so, Mike. Everything I've seen, in the private realm is the surveys that have been done since COVID and all that is overwhelmingly people don't want to spend 5 days a week in an office. And I've seen CEOs say it's affecting recruitment, that you got two good jobs and they pay about the same, but maybe this one pays a little higher, but you got to be there 5 days a week. People are taking this one. Yeah. And I think it means whether people would leave if they did this, I don't know. It's hard to leave when you're in a position like that if you've been there any length of time with retirement and all that. But I think it would be a serious recruiting problem, that getting good young blood in there and having them be there 5 days a week or 4 days a week is a mistake.
But when the cuts come, when the recession comes, Sam, and the person hasn't seen their boss in person for as much as another person has, that could be a factor, right?
Yeah, they don't have this personal relationship. But fundamentally, this problem rose as a result of some elected official trying to contact some staff person, and they were not there, and they got PO'd. This is where this has come from.
That leads to my next question. When a staff person wants to see a lawmaker at the drop of a hat, are they always around?
I don't think so.
I don't know.
All right, mysteries. We'll have to get that to next week. Anyway, time for our off-the-record parting shots. Michael Miller, you're up first.
I just finished a book a week or two ago, an old book, about 15, 20 years old, by William F. Buckley, called Miles That Have Gone, or Days That Have Gone, something like that. Anyway, and he had one of his columns in there that he went down to see the Titanic in a submersible. There were three of them. He was the only person there. And then to read that, oh, my goodness, and then come back and see this tragedy, it's ironic, I guess.
Interesting. Sam.
Civics class with my grandchildren, and they asked me, Grandpa, why is it that Republicans do so many things that hurt us? And I was startled for a moment. I had to reach for Lincoln, to help us out there, because the kids who are involved in that see a connotation of Republicans that's not really historically true.
Right. Yeah.
The Columbus Dispatch this week took a really intimate look at Jack Hanna, and who is struggling with Alzheimer's. And I mean, I think it is well worth a read. It just, even if you're not familiar with Jack Hanna, which I assume most people here are, but it was just like haunting to hear that like the Jack we know is gone, but pieces of him still remain. It's just, it's a really powerful read if you have time.
It is a great piece. Julie.
We're going to have some kind of a budget vote at the end of next week, maybe. I'll be fascinated to see whether the House, as fractured as it is, holds its own and makes the deadline of June 30th at midnight.
Larry Householder said when he was convicted that he was going to go home and plant his crops. I predicted even if he does get sentenced to prison next week, he will not go to prison until well after he can harvest those crops based on how federal courts move, how slowly they move. That is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation online. We're on Facebook. Watch us anytime at our website, WOSU.org, or on the PBS video app. For our crew and for our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.